My email debate with Claire Khaw about the Noahide laws and secular Koranism. Claire Khaw is a British blogger and YouTuber that is promoting her own brand of Sharia law to replace Western democracy due to her disgust with Western liberalism and wanting to save it from destruction. She contacted me on my blog, and I took the opportunity to ask her further about secular Koranism. This diverges off topic of my blog, though I try to tie into it at the end, and I don't normally publish email correspondence, but since Claire put our conversation on her blog, I felt it only fair I put it on mine. So here it is. Name: Claire Khaw. Email: andromeda07734@yahoo.co.uk. Comment: radicalizedrabbi.blogspot.com is my blog, and I also have a YouTube channel having subscribed to yours. My reply: Claire, Shalom. I had just a few months ago heard about your channel from a subscriber, who also happens to be a white nationalist. I am not a fan of ethnic nationalism, and checked it out. I was very confused by it, still am. I am glad you found my channel interesting enough to subscribe. I wanted to take this opportunity to give my opinions on this whole secular Koranism you are wanting to replace liberalism to save Western civilization with. First, I still can't quite wrap my head around exactly what secular Koranism is. You mentioned Sharia, but I don't know what all that entails. It would be helpful if you had a page numbered or spelled out. Second, I've heard you repeatedly ask Jews if they can agree Islam is Noahide compliant. My answer is no. I am aware that the Rambam considers Islam a monotheistic religion and Jews are not forbidden from going in a mosque. There are others who disagree. In the context of Judaism, anyone not worshipping Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh Yehovah, the God of Israel, is worshipping an idol, even if they call it God and it's the only God they worship. Sharia law is not the Torah, even though they share many of the same moral concepts. The laws and punishments are not the same. Third, you are stuck on the Noahide laws, yet want Sharia, yet want secular? This is what I find confusing. While Chabad actively push them, they are virtually unknown to the rest of Jewish society. They were made up by first-century rabbis. I still haven't figured out why. These laws go against the Torah if practiced in the land of Israel. You would be better off to just push the 10 Commandments in the name of Judaism. How do you even have secular Noahide laws? That violates the laws themselves. I think your intention is to generalize God. That actually goes against Torah by not making God holy. Your blog is called Radicalized Rabbi, but you're Muslim? Again, confusing. I do not know much about Islam or the Quran. I do, however, live in Israel and am aware of how Arab Muslims are taught to hate Jews. I don't know how you think asking Jews to give up the Torah for Sharia in their own land will benefit Israel. Anyway, these are only some of my thoughts. I will not debate in a stream. But if you would like to continue a discussion, it will need to be through email. Claire's reply: May I know the context in which the radicalized rabbi was brought up? I am in fact civic nationalist, being a non-white living in the West. My contention is that secular Koranism should be as regarded as Noahide because it is based on the Koran, the holy book of Muslims whose religion Islam is regarded by a consensus of rabbinical opinion as being the most Noahide observant. Secular Koranism is a new school of Sharia. My understanding of the Noahide laws is that righteous Gentiles who would not wish to blaspheme God and who wish to worship God without being idolaters would find these laws fair enough. You may find my survey at surveymonkey.com helpful in assisting your understanding of secular Koranism, which is basically a new school of Sharia interpreted and applied by a legally trained ex-feminist, ex-liberal and agnostic who can see the benefits of theocracy for atheists and agnostics if such a society would bring about lower crime, lower taxes, stable marriages, stable families, a stable economy and a stable society enjoying good government. Can it be denied that whether Islam is completely Noahide observant or not, it is nevertheless the most Noahide observant of all the Gentile religions? I think you should simply focus on whether Islam is the most Noahide observant of all the available Gentile religions, even if you think it does not quite satisfy your rigorous standards. If Islam is not the most Noahide observant Gentile religion of all, what is? As I understand it, the Noahide laws serve as a universal minimum standard which we should conceive of as a line on a piece of paper. Since Judaism is the religion of the people who set and maintain standards, it is above that line. My contention is that Islam is either on the line or even above it, but Christianity is bottom of the heap because it offends the prohibitions against idolatry and blasphemy. Buddhism would be ranked lower than Islam because it is atheist, Hinduism would be ranked below Buddhism because it is idolatrous. Christianity would be right at the bottom because it is both idolatrous and blasphemous. Christianity has in any case failed, which means the whole of the global empire of America will fail and fall into chaos. When this happens, minorities will be targeted. To shorten the period of chaos, Jews should at least point out that the reasons why Christianity has failed and its only moral and rational replacement, the most Noahide Gentile religion available. Even if their warnings will most probably be ignored, it should be on record that this was formally made. My position is that Israel of all the countries in the world should be a theocracy but is instead a liberal democracy, which is unnecessarily divisive as well, now obviously corrupt and dysfunctional. Any country that operates this system is now in a very bad way, including Israel. Israel is currently an American protectorate. Before its Islamic Revolution, Iran was a Western puppet state. After its Islamic Revolution, it was able to defy the might of America. No religious Jew can possibly be happy being the protectorate of a global empire that is very far from being Noahide and actually promotes the satanic laws of globo-homo, i.e. transnational progressivism. Shouldn't ultra-Orthodox rabbis be condemning Chabad for giving the impression that they think America, which in fact promotes globo-homo, is actually Noahide? Is Education and Sharing Day meant to make us think that Chabad has declared America Noahide? Education and Sharing Day is a day established by the United States Congress in honor of the Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, known for his views on the Noahide laws. The Noahide laws from the My Jewish Learning website says, in general, in modern times, no such obligation is mandated towards non-Jews who violate the Noahide laws. A notable and forceful exception is the opinion of the late Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the last leader of Chabad Lubavitch Hasidism. Schneerson wrote, "We must do everything possible to ensure that the 7 Noahide laws are observed. If this can be accomplished through force or through other kinder and more peaceful means, through explaining to non-Jews that they should accept God's wishes, we should do so. Anyone who is able to influence a non-Jew in any way to keep the 7 commandments is obligated to do so, since that is what God commanded Moses our teacher, as stated in Shiva Mitzvot Shel Bnei Noah, HaPardes chapter 59 verse 9. Quote from July 11, 1984. Since you do not wish to engage with me on YouTube, I will put our exchange on the radicalized rabbi so that others may have the benefit of any sound and light generated by our discussion, which would also publicize your blog. My response. Claire, this person found me through my commenting on a Noahide blog. He contacted me to discuss Noahidism further and he mentioned your YouTube channel. He thought we might have things in common, but as it's turning out, we are quite polar opposites. I think the only thing in common is that we are both trying to fundamentally change systems. The Noahide laws are based on the Torah, not the Koran. Yes, on the surface there is nothing objectionable on these basic laws. It comes down to who is God and what is idolatry. To call what you want secular but still want some form of worship is confusing and or misleading. I don't understand how you think you can somehow convince secular and atheists to agree to that. I think you would be better off just having whatever laws you want but leave God out of it. I don't think I can agree that Islam is more Noahide than Christianity. They both have equal problems. At least Christians worship Yehovah as the foundation. They just think either he came as a man or his son. The 10 Commandments are supposed to be their basic laws, however they have fallen away from them due to secularism. Islam, as I stated before, does not worship the God of Israel, although they have very similar moral concepts, beliefs, and practices in a general sense. To me, it doesn't even seem necessary to include Noahide laws. Why can't you just use these same principles from the Koran? Why mix them? No. Jews are not meant to set the standards on Gentiles. That's not how it's supposed to work. The Jews, by obeying all the commandments of the Torah, become as a whole, a society that the nations look to see for themselves the wisdom of God's laws and strive to adhere to those same laws themselves. Since not all Jews are obeying the commandments, this is why the nations are in turmoil, and why there is anti-Semitism. To correct this, Jews need to understand they need to obey the Torah, in the land of Israel. The minimum standard are the 10 Commandments, not the Noahide laws. I don't concern myself with any of the other religions. It's my contention that all nations will eventually fail until the Jews get their own act together. That's my focus. There is already a divide between US Jews and Israeli Jews. Chabad, despite its flawed theology, are the only ones trying to bring non-observant Jews, meaning secular and atheists, back to the Torah. Them and Breslov. So other sects are hesitant to say anything. Yes, Israelis are fed up with being a vassal state of the US. Our current PM is weak. The same tensions are boiling up here as they are in the US. My thought is that things have to get worse and democracy to fail in order for people to want to choose something else. On Education and Sharing Day, to me, this is all political pandering. Pandering to Jews just as they pander to the blacks in regards to Black History Month. Or what about Biden just saying he thinks there should be more Islam taught in schools? But wouldn't that be what you would want? America is going forced socialist/communist, which means no religion, so I don't know how you can think it will go Noahide. I think I've responded to all your comments. Feel free to respond to mine. Claire's reply. I don't know where you got the impression that I want some form of worship under secular Koranism. It guarantees freedom of belief as stated in the Koran chapter 2 verse 256. I have never claimed secular Koranism is a religion at all. It is a legal system, not a belief system. A belief system requires you to believe and affirm a particular narrative, e.g. that an executed revolutionary is the co-equal of the supreme and eternal Abrahamic God, the narrative of the Nicene Creed, etc. For this reason, there is no requirement that you believe in the Islamic narrative at all to support secular Koranism. In fact, secular Koranism is only interested in the commands and prohibitions of the Koran and ignores all its stories as well as the threats and promises of God. You could be an atheist and still support secular Koranism if you see yourself benefiting from lower crime, lower taxes, fewer laws, stable marriages, stable families, a stable currency, a stable economy and a stable society. If you want to be a married parent properly parenting your legitimate offspring, you would support secular Koranism. If you have no intention or prospect of becoming a married parent, you would not be interested in making the sacrifices necessary to restore the patriarchy, i.e. the forbidding and punishing of extramarital sex. It would not be illogical for a nation of atheists or non-Muslims to adopt secular Koranism if they see the wisdom of these laws. Is it the case that you think Muslims worship a different God to Jews and Christians? Do you not think worshipping an executed revolutionary as the co-equal of the supreme and eternal Abrahamic God, as the doctrine of the Trinity requires, is ipso facto idolatry? Why do you think Muslims worship a different God to Jews and Christians? Are you aware that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are described as the Abrahamic faiths? This means that Jews, Christians, and Muslims worship the same Abrahamic God. What do you mean by include the Noahide laws? Include them in what? Why can't I use what same principles from the Koran to do what? What have I mixed what with in what way? For what purpose do you think God made Jews his chosen people? What is the purpose of the Noahide laws other than to set a universal minimum standard of morality? If Jews were the people who set minimum standards, then it is implicit that they adhere to a higher standard themselves. We already know that what is kosher is halal, but what is halal is not kosher, and that one suffers more restrictions as a Jew than as a Muslim. It has been said that Islam is Judaism light. I am saying secular Koranism is Islam light. If Jews are not even Noahide in Israel, then it will be very difficult for them to go from 0 to 100 miles in 1 minute towards a Torah theocracy. I am suggesting that Israeli Jews, both religious and secular, might like to try my proposed starter theocracy of secular Koranism. Don't you think secular Koranism would help Jews get their act together? It is more likely to create the conditions for Jews to be better Jews than living under its current globo-homo government. I am not predicting that America is about to go Noahide, since it will only do so if it became a one-party theocracy governed by the principles of secular Koranism. However, if Jews finally began to discuss the possibility of Israel becoming a theocracy, it might become increasingly popular as the failure of Christianity and democracy becomes increasingly obvious to those who identify as Christians and liberal Democrats. If Israel were to adopt secular Koranism and become a theocracy, it might lead Western nations to adopt this model of government too. In this way would Israel become light unto the nations. My response: okay, yes. I see that you wouldn't require worship of any specific god. But if you are so concerned with idolatry and blasphemy, then that would require you to specify who God is so as not to blaspheme. If you want to say God is the creator of everything in a general sense, and allow freedom to worship or not worship just as long as you don't go against that, then fine. If it's just a legal system, then my point is why even bring God into it? I can see as an agnostic, this idea wouldn't be a big deal, but to atheists I think it would. Or maybe not. Have you talked to any atheists about this? Yes, it is my belief that Muslims worship another God than the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yes, I believe Christianity is idolatry. I believe if Allah was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then he would have given the same laws to Muhammad that he gave to Moses. And Muhammad would have given his name as I guess whatever the Arabic is of Yehovah. There are laws that contradict Torah, so if the claim that this is correcting the corruption of the rabbis of the Torah, but actually changes the original law of Moses, then you would have to say it's not the same God. It's only the claim of Muslims through Muhammad. I'm saying when you look at it, it doesn't match up, but rather borrows, adds, and replaces it. As I said before, I'm not an expert in Islam. This is just my opinion from what I do know. You keep saying the Noahide laws are the minimum to go by. Okay, so doesn't Islam have laws against murder, adultery, homosexuality, stealing, not to eat live animals, or really the blood from animals? The notion of setting up courts? I don't know, you tell me. If so, then why is it necessary to keep bringing up the Noahide laws? Just use Islam. You are already using Sharia as the foundation for the rest. To me, it just seems like another takeover of anything non-Muslim and making it Muslim. That offends me. God chose the Jews to be a testament to his existence by giving them his laws in order for them to live in peace and happiness in a moral just society. To be an example for the nations of how God works in the physical world to overcome their oppressors, free them from bondage, and heal their sickness. To hear their distress and save them. To bless them with bounty and goodness. The Noahide laws are a rabbinic invention created in the 1st century during Roman occupation. It's possible it was to guard against the nascent Christian movement, or because it was too hard at that time to get new converts to adhere to all the standards due to all the other pagan influences surrounding them at the time. There is no notion in the Torah of separate laws for Gentiles. It's only in the last few years or decades with Habad thinking that the Messiah is coming and the Zohar's influence that more and more rabbis are glomming onto this idea. It's also due to rabbis not wanting to convert Gentiles. Not because of what's in the Torah, but because they view Gentiles as below them. This is against God. So let me get this right. So since I've stated that the Noahide laws are against Torah in the land of Israel, you want Jews, instead of following a less strict form of Judaism, you want them to follow a less strict form of Islam? No. No Jew, whether secular or religious, would ever agree to that. I agree that no one can go from 0 to 100 all at once. That's why I think everyone is all for the 7 basic laws, but when born Jews who were previously secular become observant, they are not given just 7 laws. You start one step at a time. My suggestion would be to take the issue of punishments off the table. Especially for Shabbat. That's what scares secular away from religion in the first place. Have a bare minimum set for like Shabbat so people get used to it. And so on. Rabbis have made things harder than they need to be. As far as American liberals and Christians going for secular Koranism, I can't say without knowing all your proposed laws. From what I've read, you want to have brothels, but want marriage fidelity. So I would assume only single people would be allowed. You also are for this technical but real wife beating. And for slavery. You also don't speak about punishments. It's still hard for me to envision who would be interested in that type of government. You might find yourself with more fundamentalists than former liberals. If Israel becomes a theocracy, it will be one based on Judaism and not Islam. Jews will fight to the death over that. Claire's reply. When did I bring God into it? The Quran in chapter 2 verse 256 guarantees freedom of belief. If there is only one God, and Muslims already accept the prophets of Jews and Christians while emphasizing the oneness of God, as well as repeating the stories of the Tanakh, then I don't see what other God they could believe in other than the Abrahamic God. I keep bringing up the Noahide laws because I need a consensus of rabbis to declare Islam the most Noahide of all Gentile religions and Christianity the least. Not every man is marriageable and prostitution is allowed by the Quran. The verse in Quran implicitly accepts the existence of brothels. Link in description. My interpretation of that wife-beating verse. Link in description. I also talked about slavery today, as it happens. Here are links to my views on slavery. Link in the description. If Israelis want to acquire Greater Israel peacefully, they would be more likely to do it as a Quran-based theocracy than a Torah-based theocracy. Greater Israel would only come about peacefully through secular Koranism. Link in description. My final response. Claire, the very fact that you use the Noahide laws as your base brings God up. The first law is to acknowledge the existence of God. According to the Talmud, these laws form the basis of dozens of sub-laws that come from the Torah, not Sharia. So to use the 7 laws, but then use Sharia for the sub-laws actually subverts the Torah. Why do you need the rabbi's consensus other than to subvert the Torah? You are mistaken that Judaism is just for Jews. There is no law against converts. Rabbis don't proselytize only because they were forced under Roman occupation and still follow the laws made in exile. You keep wanting the Jews to tell the Gentiles to accept Noahide laws, yet at the same time want Jews to accept Sharia. Deuteronomy chapter 18 verse 20 says, "But any prophet who presumes to speak in my name an oracle that I did not command him to utter, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet shall die." This corresponds with all that is in the Quran that is not in the Torah. As for the stories from the Tanakh, there are gross inaccuracies such as mixing up the Maryam, Moses' sister, with Mary, mother of Jesus. Quran chapter 19 verses 27 to 34. As well as repeating Talmudic midrashic stories that are totally made up from the rabbis and not divine. It seriously calls into question the validity of Muhammad as a prophet. As for brothels, from reading the comments from your post, even Muslims disagree with you. The Torah also forbids prostitution for Jews, but seems to allow Jewish men to use Gentile prostitutes. If everyone were following the Jewish laws of purity, I feel that it wouldn't be an issue, meaning men wouldn't even have the want to use prostitutes. As someone who wants to get rid of the matriarchy, prostitution is seen as a liberal feminist idea. I don't really want to get into it. It seems as if you want to use your own interpretation of the Quran. So maybe you should just call it Khawism. About slavery, again, I am not interested in getting too much into this. Judaism also had slavery in the way that Islam did. The question is whether going back to that would be more beneficial than what we have now. I do think it's worthy of debate. The rabbis would have to eventually tackle this subject as well. In Judaism, slaves were allowed to go free every 7 years to release all debts. As for wife beating, I don't see how you can manage this any better than Muslims do now, which is not very well. Abraham was not a wife beater to Sarah when she wanted to get rid of Hagar. He deferred to his wife's wishes. So again, this goes against Torah. Yet the Torah is a patriarchal system. About Greater Israel, Jews do not have a choice on whether to follow the Torah or Quran. I have explained various reasons why. They are not interchangeable. Otherwise, Jews would already be mass converting to Islam. Israel is not a colonial outpost for America. That is not the reason for its existence. You are spewing anti-Zionist propaganda. You keep claiming that the Jews have a higher standard, which is better in your eyes, yet want them to lower themselves. Why? To make Muslims happy? God gave the Jews this small portion of land. We do not wish to conquer or rule over another nation or people. The Muslims have a couple dozen countries where they can live peacefully. If they want to live in our land, they need to live by Jewish law. If not, they can leave in peace. They need to take the example of Esau in Genesis chapter 33 verse 9 when Esau said to Jacob, "I have plenty. My brother, let what you have remain yours." My final analysis, I feel you have been deliberately evasive in your goals. You are using taqiyya or kitman to get rabbis to say Islam is Noahide compliant, which in effect annuls Judaism. You can't just declare a religion out of existence. Christianity will end when Jews build a temple and their Messiah still won't show up. You should be helping the Jews in this endeavor. Instead, you are waging a covert political jihad not only against Christianity and Western society, but also against Judaism. I'm surprised you don't have more Muslim support. I gave you the benefit of the doubt, but you crossed the line with the Jews. I think this discussion is over. Thank you for your time. Claire's final response. How am I subverting the Torah, as you claim? I am saying Jews are the people who are supposed to set and uphold standards. However, since Jews have not lived in a theocracy for 2,000 years, it will be difficult for you. Sharia is at least Noahide, so you should try Secular Koranism as a starter theocracy before you go for a full-blown Torah theocracy. What has this to do with Secular Koranism? Secular Koranism is not at all interested in the stories of either the Torah or the Koran, and is only interested in what are identifiably rules that should be legally enforceable in the one-party theocracy that I propose. Secular Koranism is indifferent as to whether you accept Muhammad as God's final prophet. Quran chapter 2 verse 256 in any case guarantees freedom of belief. I think you will find that feminists are the ones who are most keen on banning brothels, since feminism operates through bribing men with fornication to distract them from the oppression of their matriarchy. Basically, feminists want unmarried women to be the main suppliers of sex, particularly those who do not give the price of sex up front to men, but instead pretend it is free but load it with very costly hidden charges. I was expecting you to congratulate me for not interpreting the verse out of existence while also interpreting it literally. Perhaps you did not in fact read my interpretation of that wife-beating verse in the Quran? I am not quite sure why you are accusing me of spewing anti-Zionist propaganda when I have not once questioned Israel's existence and have been suggesting that secular Koranism might even make Greater Israel more likely to be obtained peacefully. I say Jews are supposed to be the people setting and upholding standards, but have not done so for centuries. Since they themselves are now no longer Noahide, they should use secular Koranism as a starter theocracy and a kind of refresher course in theocracy. This is nothing to do with making Muslims happy, but a Jew I know has acknowledged that Israelis adopting secular Koranism would probably soften Arab hearts towards Israeli Jews. I really do not see how getting rabbis to confirm that Islam is more Noahide observant than Christianity in effect annuls Judaism. I have not in any way proposed to declare a religion out of existence. How do you propose that I help Jews in what endeavor? How is anything I have said or done in any way covert or against Western society? If Christianity is kaput, should this not be brought to the notice of Christians and Western governments who might otherwise think they have a functioning religion? Would you let Gentiles consume food and drink that you know to be toxic without at least attempting to warn them of this? I consider Christianity to be toxic to the morality of Western society, since the 21st century Christian is just a liberal conservative who supported gay marriage but who thinks he is going to heaven. How does anything I have proposed amount to an attack against Judaism? How have I crossed the line? This concludes our conversation. I really don't feel the need to respond further. I feel either Claire is extremely ignorant of Jewish perspective, which I find hard to believe since she's been at this for 10 years, or she's totally gaslighting me because I'm right about my suspicions. I would like to agree somewhat on one point. If Jews would proselytize to non-Jews, it would save at least some from this mess the West finds itself in. I myself was angry that I wasn't told about the truth of Judaism. I had to search it out myself. Most people who have no contact with Jews don't even know Judaism is an option for them. My soul and other non-Jewish souls are just as important as a born Jewish one. Every soul needs to be told about the God of Israel. Otherwise, this is how you end up with Claire Khaw. Rabbis, let this be a lesson for you. What do you think? Let me know in the comments.